In a galaxy ruled by powerful alien empires, humans were considered a minor species, weak and insignificant. Their technology lagged far behind the advanced weapons and ships of the alien powers. But that was before humanity's first intergalactic ship, the Phoenix, set off on its maiden voyage. The Phoenix was not your typical warship. In fact, most would have called it a disaster waiting to happen. It was cobbled together from outdated human technology and scraps of alien technology that no one else wanted. The ship's design was messy, the systems mismatched, and the weapons barely functional. It wasn't even supposed to leave Earth's orbit, yet somehow it managed to get off the ground, much to the surprise of its crew. Captain Adrian Klein, a seasoned human officer, was fully aware that the Phoenix was far from perfect. Yet, he and his crew had no choice but to make it work. There were no other ships to send to the human colonies that had recently come under threat from an aggressive alien empire, the Drekker Dominion. With their advanced fleet, the Drekker had quickly become the galaxy's most feared power. The human colonies were helpless, and the Phoenix was humanity's last line of defense. As soon as the Phoenix exited Earth's atmosphere, it was greeted by disaster. The Drekker fleet, arrogant in their technological superiority, launched a full-scale attack on a nearby human colony. The aliens assumed the battle would be a quick one. After all, how could a ship made of mismatched parts and outdated tech stand a chance against their powerful, advanced fleet? The Phoenix, with its malfunctioning shields and weapons that barely worked, was clearly no match for the Drekker's devastating firepower. It was a mismatch that should have ended in an easy victory for the alien forces. But the humans aboard the Phoenix were not so easily defeated. Despite their ship's many flaws, they refused to back down. The crew, led by Captain Klein, began to think on their feet. Every broken system, every malfunctioning piece of tech was used as a weapon. The shields that wouldn't stabilize properly? They became decoys, tricking the Drekker into wasting energy. The weapons that only fired on occasion? When they did fire, they hit with devastating accuracy, catching the Drekker off guard. The crew of the Phoenix didn't have advanced weapons or shields. They didn't have the luxury of sophisticated technology or superior firepower. What they did have was something far more important: determination, resourcefulness, and the ability to adapt. Captain Klein and his crew knew they couldn't rely on brute strength. Instead, they played on the weaknesses of their own ship. They used every broken system to their advantage. The engine sputtered and stalled, but they pushed the ship harder than it was ever meant to go, maneuvering it in ways that the Drekker had never expected. The communication systems were glitching, but they used it to send confusing signals, creating chaos in the Drekker fleet. Despite the odds stacked against them, the crew of the Phoenix found ways to outsmart their opponents, using the ship's faults as strengths. The Drekker fleet was caught off guard by their ingenuity and tenacity. The battle raged on, with the Phoenix somehow holding its ground. The Drekker were used to easy victories, but the crew of the Phoenix made them work for every shot. They never expected humans, with their primitive technology, to put up such a fight. But with each passing minute, it became clearer that the Phoenix was not going down without a fight. Finally, after what felt like hours, the Drekker fleet began to falter. Their ships, once so confident and powerful, were now in disarray. The humans' tactics had worked. The Phoenix had managed to inflict enough damage to force the Drekker to retreat, and they left the battle in confusion. The crew of the Phoenix had done the impossible. They had won. News of the victory spread quickly throughout the galaxy. The Drekker, once the undisputed rulers of space, had been forced to retreat by a ragtag crew aboard a ship that should never have worked. The Phoenix may have been a mess of old tech and broken parts, but it showed the galaxy that humanity had something no other species could match: sheer determination. The galaxy's perception of humans changed overnight. They were no longer seen as weak, insignificant beings. The Phoenix had proved that humanity's greatest strength didn't come from advanced technology, but from their unbreakable will to survive and fight. The Drekker Empire, once so sure of its dominance, now had to contend with the reality that the humans were not a species to be underestimated. The Phoenix became a symbol of hope and defiance, a reminder that even the most flawed and imperfect things could change the course of history. And as for Captain Klein and his crew, they had shown the galaxy that humans were capable of anything. no matter how impossible it seemed. The ship might have been a disaster on paper, but it had just defied logic and changed the galaxy forever. In a galaxy filled with technologically advanced alien civilizations, humanity was seen as an insignificant species. They were laughed at for their primitive ships and outdated technology. Their first battleship, the Ironclad, was considered nothing more than a joke, a hunk of metal patched together with leftover parts and manual labor. To the aliens, it was clear humans didn't stand a chance. The Ironclad was built in desperation. Humanity's resources were limited, and with no advanced technology of their own, they had to make do with what they could find. Engineers worked day and night, scrounging for old ship parts and salvage technology to assemble their first real warship. The result was bulky, slow, and an eyesore. It looked like a ship that belonged in a scrapyard, not in space combat. The aliens, with their sleek, cutting-edge warships, couldn't help but laugh when they first saw the Ironclad. How could this old, clunky ship possibly stand against their powerful fleets? The crew aboard the Ironclad, led by Captain Emily Hayes, had their doubts too. But they had one thing that the aliens didn't: determination. They were going to make the Ironclad work, no matter how mismatched or old it seemed. The peaceful human colonies were suddenly thrown into chaos. The Drekker, a vicious alien empire, had decided it was time to expand their territory. They launched an invasion of the human colonies, confident that their powerful fleet would wipe out the humans without breaking a sweat. However, when the Drekker arrived, they found only one thing waiting for them: the Ironclad. The other ships in the fleet were outdated or damaged, unable to fight back. The Ironclad, though, was the last hope of humanity. It wasn't fast, it wasn't sleek, and it certainly wasn't a match for the alien ships in terms of firepower. But it was all they had, and Captain Hayes and her crew were not going to let it go down without a fight. The battle began, and as expected, the Ironclad was quickly outgunned. The Drekker's ships circled the human vessel, firing their powerful weapons. The Ironclad's shields flickered and faltered, and its weapons barely made a dent in the alien fleet. The crew of the Ironclad were under attack from all sides, but they didn't give up. They knew they were outmatched in firepower, but they had something else: heart. Captain Hayes and her officers quickly adapted to the situation. They used the ship's slow speed to their advantage, luring the Drekker into traps. With limited maneuverability, the humans couldn't run, so they didn't. Instead, they made their enemies chase them into dangerous positions. They used the Ironclad's bulk to their advantage, hiding in the shadows of asteroids and using the ship's strange configuration to confuse the Drekker's targeting system. Every time the Drekker thought they had the Ironclad cornered, the crew would spring into action, using the ship's malfunctioning systems to their advantage. The ship's weapons, which only fired intermittently, ended up catching the Drekker off guard. When the guns did fire, they hit with unexpected precision, damaging the alien ships. The Drekker were caught in a cycle of confusion, unable to predict the humans' next move. Hours passed, and the battle seemed like it would never end. But then, something unexpected happened. The Ironclad, a ship that the Drekker had written off as scrap, began to turn the tide. One by one, alien ships began to fall. The crew, using every scrap of technology and every ounce of willpower, managed to destroy several of the Drekker warships. Their firepower wasn't as overwhelming, but their tactics were brilliant. The Drekker, who had expected a quick victory, were now on the retreat, confused and desperate. The final blow came when the Ironclad, with its malfunctioning engines and broken systems, somehow found a way to outmaneuver the last remaining Drekker ship. The alien vessel, confident it would finish off the human ship, was caught by surprise. The Ironclad fired its last remaining shot, a direct hit that tore through the Drekker ship's hull. The human crew cheered as the alien ship exploded, and the remaining Drekker fleet retreated. The news of the Ironclad's victory spread throughout the galaxy, and the Drekker, once so sure of their superiority, were forced to withdraw. The humans had won against all odds. They had defeated a much stronger enemy with a ship that shouldn't have even worked. The Ironclad, a ship that had been mocked and written off, had proven the galaxy wrong. It wasn't the technology that made it powerful, it was the humans aboard it. Their resourcefulness, their bravery, and their refusal to back down had turned the tide of the battle. The ironclad had become a symbol of humanity's true strength, the will to survive. The galaxy, once so quick to dismiss humanity as a weak species, now saw them in a new light. The Drekker were no longer invincible, and humanity was no longer something to be overlooked. The ironclad had shown the galaxy that sometimes it's not the ship that wins the battle, it's the heart of those who fight within it. And as for Captain Hayes and her crew, they would forever be remembered as the ones who turned a scrap ship into the greatest weapon the galaxy had ever seen. In a galaxy ruled by powerful alien species, humanity was considered a minor presence, unimportant, weak, and far behind in technology. The aliens were advanced, with sleek ships, powerful weapons, and shields that could withstand anything. But humanity had one thing they didn't: determination. The Vanguard, humanity's first warship, was everything the aliens expected it to be: outdated, slow, and poorly designed. It was a ship made of scrap parts and old Earth technology, pieced together by human engineers who had no choice but to make do with what they had. It was ugly, rusty, and lacked the finesse of the ships the aliens used. To the rest of the galaxy, it was nothing more than a joke. And its crew? They were seen as foolish for even attempting to send such a ship into battle. The Vanguard was a far cry from the sleek, efficient warships of the alien fleets. The ship's hull was made of metal that had seen better days, and its engines sputtered and groaned every time they powered up. It wasn't fast, and its weapons were unreliable, firing erratically and sometimes jamming mid-battle. The humans aboard the Vanguard were aware of their ship's many flaws, but they also knew something the aliens didn't: there was no quit in humanity. Captain Eli Harper, the leader of the Vanguard's crew, had grown used to the ridicule. He had heard the alien pilots laugh when they saw the Vanguard leave Earth's atmosphere. They called it the tin can and the rust bucket, and they couldn't believe that humanity thought they stood a chance in a real battle. But Captain Harper and his crew were determined to prove them wrong. The first true test came when the Vanguard encountered an alien fleet in a far-off system. The alien ships were sleek, fast, and bristling with advanced weapons and energy shields. The humans aboard the Vanguard knew they were vastly outgunned and outnumbered, but they had no choice but to fight. ASIALE's ships opened fire. The Vanguard's shields flickered and failed, and the ship's engines struggled to keep up with the attack. To any other species, this battle would have been over in minutes. The aliens didn't even bother to take the humans seriously. After all, how could a slow, malfunctioning ship possibly survive against the perfect efficiency of the alien warships? But Captain Harper and his crew had something that the aliens didn't: a relentless will to survive. They refused to give in to despair. Instead of fighting head-on, Captain Harper ordered his crew to use the Vanguard's quirks to their advantage. They knew they couldn't match the alien ship's speed or firepower, so they used their underdog status as a weapon. The Vanguard's malfunctioning systems became tools for deception and distraction. The crew hacked into the alien communication networks, feeding them false information and making the aliens think they were being attacked from another direction. They used the ship's slow speed as an advantage, baiting the alien ships into tight formations where the Vanguard could land unexpected hits. The ship's weapons may have been unreliable, but when they fired, they hit hard, often at just the right moment to throw the enemy off balance. The crew also deployed makeshift traps using the debris from destroyed ships and asteroids nearby, turning the battlefield into a maze of hazards for the alien fleet. The aliens, who had expected an easy victory, were now confused and disoriented. The Vanguard had become a phantom ship, appearing and disappearing with precision, striking when it was least expected. Captain Harper's quick thinking and the crew's creativity kept them alive, longer than anyone thought possible. As the battle raged on, the Vanguard's crew began to see something remarkable. The alien fleet was faltering. The aliens had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The Vanguard, despite its outdated tech and its many faults, had survived long enough to cripple the alien ships one by one. In the final moments of the battle, the Vanguard's last working missile system fired a direct hit on the command ship of the alien fleet. The explosion sent shockwaves through the battlefield, and the remaining alien ships began to retreat, stunned by what they had just witnessed. The crew of the Vanguard stood in silence as they realized they had won. Against all odds, they had defeated a much stronger enemy with nothing but their wits and determination. The ship that the aliens had laughed at, the ship they had written off as scrap, had proven them wrong. The galaxy, once quick to dismiss humanity as a weak species, now looked at them in a new light. The news of the Vanguard's victory spread like wildfire, and the alien species who had mocked humanity were left to reconsider their assumptions. The Vanguard had shown that technology wasn't everything. What truly mattered was the will to fight. The ship that had once been called the Tin became a symbol of human resilience. Its crew proved that even the most mismatched, imperfect vessel could be turned into a powerful force with the right mindset. The Vanguard was no longer just a ship. It was a message to the galaxy: never underestimate humanity. Captain Harper and his crew became legends, and the Vanguard was celebrated as the ship that had shown the galaxy that human ingenuity, creativity, and willpower could triumph where technology alone failed. No longer would humans be seen as weak. They had earned their place among the stars.ina galaxy, where alien empires ruled supreme. Humans were seen as nothing more than a primitive species. Their technology was old, their ships were clunky and outdated, and they were always looked down upon by the advanced, sleek vessels of the alien fleets. Humanity's place in the galaxy was firmly at the bottom, and no one ever thought they could change that. The Resilience was humanity's latest warship, and it was the laughingstock of the galaxy. Built with leftover Earth technology and scrap parts scavenged from the wreckage of destroyed ships, the Resilience was slow, clunky, and lacked the advanced weapon systems that other species boasted. Its engines sputtered and groaned, and its hull was patched up with mismatched metal plates, held together by little more than hope. The Resilience wasn't supposed to be a fighter. It was just a test run, a ship built in desperation because humanity didn't have the resources for anything better. Other species laughed at the Resilience. They saw it as a joke, a ship that would fail before it even left Earth's orbit. The crew, too, were new to space combat, most of them fresh out of the academy, inexperienced, and ill-prepared for the horrors of war. No one expected them to accomplish anything, least of all the crew themselves. But they had something the aliens didn't, a deep, unshakable will to survive. One fateful day, a new alien threat emerged. The Vraks, a race of powerful, ruthless conquerors, descended on the human colonies. Their ships were far superior, fast, heavily armed, and nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. As the alien fleet rained destruction upon humanity's outer colonies, the Resilience was the only ship left to defend Earth's last remaining outposts. The Resilience wasn't prepared for an attack of this scale. The crew was small, their technology was outdated, and they were outnumbered. The alien fleet was ready to crush humanity once and for all. But what the aliens didn't understand was that the human spirit, even in the face of overwhelming odds, was a force unlike any other. Captain Noah Jensen stood at the helm of the Resilience, staring at the incoming alien ships. His heart pounded, but his resolve was ironclad. "We may be outgunned," he said to his crew, "but we're not out of options. Let's show them what humans can do." The crew of the Resilience quickly learned to fight with what they had. They weren't experts, but they knew their ship better than anyone. The Resilience's weapons systems were barely functional, often firing erratically or not at all, but the crew found ways to make them work. They used the ship's slow movement to their advantage, leading the Vraks fleet into asteroid fields where the larger alien ships couldn't maneuver. The Resilience was no match for the Vraks' firepower, but its crew used clever tactics to turn the tables. The humans set traps, using the ship's malfunctioning cloaking system to create confusion among the alien ships. They hacked into the Vraks' communication networks, sending out false signals to trick the alien fleet into thinking they were under attack from multiple directions. Each time the Resilience took a hit, the crew found a way to patch it up, using what little resources they had. Despite the ship's outdated systems, they fought with everything they had. The Resilience was a symbol of their spirit, flawed, broken but unyielding. After hours of intense battle, the impossible happened. One by one, the alien ships began to fall. The Vraks' fleet, confident in their superiority, didn't anticipate the ingenuity and sheer determination of the human crew. The Resilience used the Vraks' overconfidence against them, setting up a final trap that disabled the lead alien ship's engines and left it vulnerable. With a final, unexpected barrage from the Resilience's makeshift weapon systems, the Vrax flagship exploded in a flash of fire and debris. The remaining Vrax ships, stunned by the turn of events, tried to regroup, but the damage had been done. Their commander ordered a retreat. The Resilience, a ship that should have failed, a ship that everyone had written off, had won. The impossible had been achieved. Humanity had survived. And the Vrax, who had come to destroy them, were forced to flee. The galaxy was left in shock. No one could believe what had just happened. The Resilience, a ship made from outdated parts and built with human ingenuity, had taken down an entire alien fleet. News of the battle spread quickly, and humanity's reputation began to shift. The alien empires that had once mocked humans now saw them in a new light. The victory of the Resilience proved that humans were more than just a primitive species, they were survivors. The Resilience became a symbol of humanity's resilience, a reminder that it wasn't technology that made a warrior, it was the heart, the will to fight, and the refusal to give up. The ship that was always meant to fail had turned the tide of the war. The victory of the Resilience would forever be remembered as the moment when humanity proved it belonged among the stars. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again. And as the crew of the Resilience stood together, victorious against impossible odds, they knew one thing: they had not just saved humanity, they had shown the galaxy the true power of the human spirit.